Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order, and we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Now, the clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Fountain?
Here.
Treasurer Horning?
Here.
Clerk Chofiu? Here. Trustee Collier?
Here.
Trustee Germain? Absent. Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Petrucci? Here.
Thank you. Item number 4 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is call to the public. Anybody at call to the public this evening? Being none, we'll go to item number 6, which is approval of our consent agenda.
Move. Support.
Motion by Trustee Petrucci, second by Trustee Kalani. Is there any discussion on our consent agenda? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. This is our annual budget hearing evening.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
I have a motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Manager Wickman, would you like to give a preview of our budget hearing, and then we'll open up for anybody that has public comment. If you have a public comment, please come up to the podium up here, state your name and your address, and then we will do the best we can to answer the questions, and if there's something more in depth, we can go into it at a later point. So, Manager Wickman.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a couple of brief things as an overview. The information, the budget hearing was noticed in the paper and put out there, of course, through our other channels. And the information on the budget, detailed information on the budget, has been included in the public agenda packets, and a copy has been available here for review as well. And we do have copies tonight for anybody that might want to look at it. Just a couple of things to cover, of course. First is truth in taxation. There are 3 millage rates that the township is responsible for. The general fund millage for the township, the fire millage that funds the fire fund through which we contribute to the fire authority, and then of course the road millage. As you know, there have been some Headley rollbacks in the last couple of years that have brought those millage rates down. I do believe that our general fund millage rate is still one of the lowest in the county, if not the lowest. And those are our best estimate because of the timing of our fiscal year to the time that these millage rates are finalized. We can only say they are an estimate of what the millage rate will be later this year. Just a quick overview of what the general fund budget looks like from a revenue position. As you know, about half of our general fund revenue is from state shared revenue through the sales tax on a per capita basis coming back to every city, village, and township. The red and purple areas account for another quarter to a third of our budget. That is property tax revenue and property tax administration, and then the other third or quarter comes from other fees and planning and zoning fees, cable franchise, that kind of a thing. And on the expenditure side, we've broken these into the categories that you've looked at in the past, which roughly align with what our departments look like, and it's fairly spread around. And the largest area you see there represent the transfers, the majority of which are capital reserves that we set aside for capital projects each year, which we have a capital project later on this agenda. So happy to answer any questions the board may have, and otherwise open it for.
James, just for the audience's knowledge, and if you could just explain in layman's terms the Headley override, kind of what that means when you go back to that screen.
Yeah, in 1994, there was a statewide ballot question, Proposal A at that time, that set up local government financing through this way so that such that if there were such a large inflation of property values in a community, that would not have an overly positive effect on local tax revenue. That if there was an inflation in values above the normal inflation rate, then the property tax rate would actually reduce by a corresponding amount, so that it's sort of a zero-sum game in theory, that we would not receive additional tax dollars just because the value of property is appreciated above inflation.
So, in other words, in '94, that millage was 1.0.
We started off at 1.3 at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's gone down quite a bit. The road millage, even just from a couple of years ago, started off at 1.5. And we've only had rollbacks in the last couple of years, so it's even rolled back that much in just a couple of years.
And I'd like to just bring one other element up. As we as a board, what we try to do every year is do an excellent job here with staff and service, and then on above and beyond that, take the additional dollars that are available and put them into capital improvements. And Manager Workman, if you could just kind of maybe explain what that percentage of our budget might look like and what that number maybe even entails in this upcoming fiscal year.
Yes, what's proposed is that we would not quite reach 20% of our budget set aside as a capital reserve. That's transferred over, and that's why it showed as a transfer out here, transferred over to our capital projects fund, and that fund is used for a number of things from the strategic plan level. That includes park improvements, sidewalk improvements, and even, buildings, other buildings and ground needs, things like that.
Thank you. Does any other board members have any questions for Manager Wickman?
We talk about the Headley rollback. Does the township have the ability to override that rollback?
Only by vote of the people. And some communities have done that for various reasons.
So if there's no other questions from the board, this is a public hearing. Anybody that has any questions or comments may come forward at this time. It looks like nobody wants to come forward at this time, so
I'll
I'll
move to
recommend.
close the-
I have a motion to close.
Close.
Support. Motion by Treasurer Hornan to close the public hearing for the budget, with a second by Trustee Harper. We'll close this and then we'll do the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for the fiscal year 2019 general appropriations budget, operations budget.
I'll move to approve the resolution to establish a general appropriation act for the 2019 fiscal year.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Kalani. Are there any questions or comments? Being none, I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Trustee Petrucci?
Yes.
Clerk Chofiu, yes. Trustee Collier?
Yes.
Supervisor Fountain?
Yes.
Treasurer Horning?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Jermaine is absent. Motion passes.
Thank you. And then Manager Wickman, number 2 on the agenda is the Fire Authority. To go through the same process, or do we have to have it, or was that covered under that last one?
No, you'll have to approve that separately by the bylaws of the authority as you set it up.
Okay.
And no resolution needed, just a motion is fine.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the Fire Authority budget as presented.
Support. I'm sorry. I'll move that.
Okay.
I'll support it.
Motion by Trustee Harper, second by Trustee Petrucci. Is there any discussion?
There were some questions that I had. Were those addressed regarding the issues concerning retirement and future revenue issues? The contract with Tyrone and all that? What's being
We're in the
proposed?
process of doing that right now. The big question was to move the 457 match to the on-call personnel only, which was done.
Okay. And then I think that, you know, our concerns with where that's going in terms of, I understand you put together a group to look at that?
Yes, we've been
Rising
meeting
costs.
with Fire Authority, and we plan to over the next few months, some representatives, and our expectations come back to you in August with some recommendations on how to address the revenue and expenses, matching.
Okay.
And you've already met, I think, one time already?
We met one time, we have another
Last
meeting
week.
scheduled in a couple weeks.
Okay.
With a lot of work to do in between.
Very good. Any other questions from the board? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Special use permit number 18-001, Hartland Town Center Brew Pub. Good evening. If you'd like to come forward to here and introduce yourself to us. By the way, welcome to Hartland.
Actually, I've lived here for quite some time. But,
You can come up if you would like to, Mr. Luke. Well, welcome. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Kalani, who's on our Planning Commission. This is a special use permit. It's in an existing building, and the nature of the business requires a special use application, which you've gone through the Planning Commission. So with that, Commissioner Kalani, would you like to go, or Trustee Kalani, would you like to go forward with your review of the Planning Commission meeting?
Well, as you indicated, the applicant requested a special use permit, is requesting a special use permit for the approval of the proposed brew pub in the existing tenant space located at Hartland Town Center. The brew pub is only permitted by special land use permit in the general commercial zoning district as outlined in our zoning ordinance section 3.1.14D. Per the zoning ordinance and the State Enabling Act, a public hearing was required, and on February 22nd, the public hearing was held. At that time, information was obtained as well, and it was determined that under our zoning ordinance, the applicant met the requirements for special use as recommended by the Planning Department. So the hearing went very well, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve the special use permit
Okay.
for this brew pub at Hartland Town Center.
Okay. Are you Mr. McDonald?
I am, yes.
By the way, welcome.
Myself, thank you.
Do you have any comments or any questions for the board?
No, I thought the planning commission, meeting went very well. It's instead of brew pub, it is microbrewery, so it's just our own product.
Okay.
Different legal terminology we went over in the planning commission, but no, I think it's a good fit. My wife and I and my family have been in Hartland for 20 years and been looking for a good location. It seems like a good fit for hopefully everyone involved.
Very well. Any board members have questions?
Is there enough room in there? It just seems like I've been in it when it was a coffee shop.
Yeah, there's a little over, just barely over 2,000 square foot, but, I'm sure in the packet there's a drawing as well. The tanks, 5 fermenters in a small brew system. We don't plan to distribute, just to have our own right there, and very limited menu. It's a little bit of a long explanation of how to make it all work, but it's very, very workable. 14 years in the restaurant business. I'm a food person as well. It's not just beer and wine and cider. It's definitely going to be something to eat as well. So, but yes, it'll be tight quarters, but it'll be, we like to think intimate and a cozy feel.
So will you be selling the growlers,
Yes,
and so you can get refills?
yes.
Will it be a drive-through for that?
I don't think that's part of the.
Just
I
kidding.
don't think that's part of
There's no
the
drive-through.
law, but yes, it's that permit or that license does have it to go carry out.
When are you hoping to be open?
Mid to late October, which probably means November, to be honest. At this state, it's a 9-month process to get the license through. We're about 2 or 3 weeks into it now, trying to go forward.
That's through the state of Michigan?
Yeah, and then also the federal government, the TTB
Okay.
has a say in it as well. And so that's a little quicker process, 6 months to then. So hopefully in cold we'll get back to
Okay.
being a business.
Very good. Manager Wickman, you had a question or a comment?
I just wanted an important distinction that was mentioned already, and the planning director wanted me to, for your benefit. It's a microbrewery for the purpose of the liquor license through the Liquor Control Commission. As defined within our zoning ordinance, it's considered a brew pub within the zoning ordinance. So there are some semantical differences. Brew pub is not appropriate when talking in terms of the liquor license. That's why you've seen both terms go back and forth.
Okay. And that's all carried through the state on one level, and then you said the federal government on the other?
Correct.
Okay.
What's their role, the federal government? I've never,
We get, as soon as the beer gets processed from brew to ferment, we're taxed. And then we're taxed again.
It's a taxing issue.
oh, it's just taxes.
So it's
Okay, I
taxed.
was going to say,
Yeah, and then location of the fermenters and security of that. There's kind of a big to-do with where their money is at and how it's being protected.
thank you.
And especially, it just
Well, I would recommend the,
doesn't need a resolution.
No, it's just a motion. I'll move to approve special land use application 18-001 for a microbrewery in Hartland Town Center based on the findings and conditions outlined in the planning director's recommended actions.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Welcome to Hartland and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 9 is pending and new business. DPW Director West is going to explain a potential project of a sidewalk in our community. Mr. West, good evening.
Thank you. What you have before you this evening is a brief summary of the process by which Public Works was able to obtain unit pricing through a bid process for the proposed Hartland Road pathway. I want to start off by letting everybody know the original engineer's construction estimate for this project was $364,000. That being said, $22,381 was spent in the prior year on the design process. In an effort to, there was an opportunity to basically save some additional money by developing the bid specifications in-house based on the construction engineering estimate, and Public Works developed the bid specifications. It was received by 9 different contractors. Of that, we did have a mandatory pre-bid meeting where anybody who basically wanted to bid on this project was required to attend. And as a result from that, we received 4 separate bids. Now, this is a very unique project, and Public Works will oversee the construction observation of this project. We believe there are some additional cost-saving opportunities that are not depicted in the HRC design plan. We are working with the Livingston County Road Commission to amend that plan somewhat for some substantial savings. That being said, this project is more of a excavation project than a concrete project. If you look at the bid tab, you will see the delta between the unit pricing of the bids between the concrete was much smaller than the delta for the excavation work. That being said, the 2 of the contractors who attended the pre-bid meeting joined forces, 1 excavator and 1 concrete contractor, to submit a joint bid for this project, and it resulted in the lowest unit cost. And what Public Works is looking for at this point in time is to award a contract based on the unit pricing only. We will oversee, or our internal staff will oversee the load tickets to verify the unit costs, and we will manage the project. However, there are some additional costs that aren't recognized in the actual construction contract, and they include an agreement with the Livingston County Road Commission for the crosswalk at the Dunham Road intersection. There is some realignment with the north side of the school property. We believe that there will be more extensive restoration required in front of the Woodcliff condominium complex due to the elevation changes in their current facade that they have, their landscape facade. So with that being said, Public Works is requesting a retainer in the amount of $68,330 to be basically used as needed without having to revisit the Township Board for approval. Because time is of an essence during this construction process, we would like to avoid any future delays. And that being said, with all the costs added up, the total project cost is proposed at $323,745, of which the actual construction cost for the sidewalk itself is less than the CIP allocation of $300,000. It's approximately $298,000 and some change. So the total project potential cost savings here is approximately $40,000 based off of HRC's original construction estimate of $364,000. And again, what I'm requesting this evening would be, recommending this evening is to award a contract with Priest Companies based on the unit price. This is not a lump sum. If we use less material, we will only pay for the material that we use. Again, I will manage the project personally, and I will oversee the load tickets as well as staff. We will be out there. We do have the unit pricing, and essentially it would be more of a not to exceed, if you will, versus an actual contract amount. This is somewhat unique hybrid type project, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions regarding this and how we came to these figures.
I think it's important for the, and maybe you mentioned it, but the location of this and where's.
Oh, I
where's-
apologize. Yes, this
You may
is-
have said that, but.
This is a pretty pivotal point in the overall walkability of Hartland Township. This particular segment of pathway will essentially is the last remaining piece to connect M59 pathway all the way to the Hartland Village area. Currently, there is a gap, which this project references, at the north edge of the Ramco property all the way to the Dunham Road intersection. This project does also include an agreement, as I mentioned, with the Livingston County Road Commission for updated LED crosswalk, the walk and don't walk signs. They are going to, it's a 50% cost share with them, and they will handle all the engineering, permitting, and construction installation of the actual crosswalk itself. It does require some boring underneath the actual intersection. So this is, that particular aspect of the project is somewhat of a joint venture, but again, it will connect the, basically M59 all the way to the Hartland Village area.
And what's the time frame to have this start and maybe be completed, estimated?
Currently, we have some minor easement issues that we anticipate being resolved within the next 2 weeks. And upon that, the process will is projected to start upon lifting of the frost laws by the Road Commission. Historically, those frost laws generally run until mid-April. On rare occasions, they dive into the 3rd or 4th week of April. So upon completion, we look to start the construction process. This process is potentially a 30 to 40 day to reach substantial completion with the restoration, because there will be some grass seed involved in this and some straw netting and whatnot. We anticipate that the restoration of the vegetation and the landscape may take a little longer, but the pathway will be open essentially to the public, we believe, between 30 and 40 days upon the frost laws being removed.
Okay. Other questions from board members?
I'll make a motion that we approve a contract with Priest Companies and the allowance for other requirements for a total project cost not to exceed $298,364,000, and to authorize the use of a retainer for additional expenses as deemed necessary by the Public Works Director in the amount not to exceed $68,330.
Support.
And a motion by trustee Harper, second by trustee Kalani. Is there any other discussion or questions?
Just to clarify for the board's benefit, that last dollar amount's included in the 298.
Oh, okay. I'm
That's
sorry.
all, that's fine.
Misunderstood what you said.
No, it's right, it's all in there. I just didn't want you to think it was going over, it's all of that's not to exceed 298.
Okay.
Anything else? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 10, which is our board reports. And we start this evening, our first meeting in March. Trustee Harper,
No report.
trustee Petrucci,
No report.
clerk Schofu,
No report.
trustee Kalani,
No report.
and treasurer Horning.
Last Wednesday was the last day of tax collection, and I really want to thank Corey and Donna in my office. They make everything so easy to close. We're the first ones into the county with all of our stuff accurate to the penny, and it was just a really easy tax season having them on board, and I want to thank them for all their efforts and everybody who paid on time. Thank you.
Next week is board of review. If you're at home listening and you want information, you can call our assessor's office during the day tomorrow or the next day, whenever you want. It starts next Monday and it's next Wednesday. And Wednesday's board of review starts at 2 and it goes till 9 o'clock in the evening for those that work during the day. Unless there's something else from the board, we'll take a brief recess and then we'll have our work session.